G'day. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how we can use Python, a programming language, to assist us with decisions we might need to make with our remote control cars. So in this case, I'm going to look at if we know the current top speed of our car and the current amount of teeth on the pinion gear, how do we select what number of teeth we need to put on our pinion gear in order to have the car reach a desired top speed. So this is purely a mathematical calculation, and it does not take into account the wind resistance of the car, nor does it take into account the amount of torque that the motor is producing. We're just going for a theoretical top speed. This should work provided you have enough torque in your motor to actually achieve the desired top speed. If torque is insufficient, then obviously the motor is not going to be able to reach its desired RPM, and in which case the top speed of the car won't be achievable. But this is purely mathematical, and it's a great way to estimate where you need to start. So let's have a look at the Python window. Okay, so over here we've got a new file opened in Python, and I'm just going to start by creating a comment line which will explain what the program does. So placing a hash in front of a line in Python will make that line a comment. Okay, a comment is ignored by the program, but is there for us to understand what we were thinking when we wrote that program. It's a great idea to comment your code so that you know where you were at later, what you were trying to achieve. My first part of the code is just going to take the inputs from the user. So we will get the inputs, and I'm just going to comment that there so I know later what we were trying to do. And now what we need to do is create a variable for the current top speed. So we need to name a variable. In order to do that, I'm just going to go current speed equals, and we're going to make this an integer. Okay, so we're going to enter a whole number into this field. Now we need to receive an input from the user. So we also need to tell the user what it is we are trying to input. And next we need to take in our current pinion tooth count. So I'll call the variable current tooth count. And this is going to be equal to an integer as well. And we're going to request an input from the user. And lastly, we need to input what is the desired top speed. So we want to name a variable again, and we are going to ask the user to input an integer again. Now each of these, when we run the code, is going to request an input from the user, and then it's going to store each variable in the variable named here. So we've named one variable current speed, we've named another one current tooth count, and lastly we've named a variable for the desired top speed. So in this case, this variable here will take in, and that will allow the code to calculate what is the actual tooth count required to achieve the top speed you want to reach. So now we're going to ask the computer to do the maths for us. Okay, now in this part of the program, we're going to actually create the algorithm that will calculate the desired tooth count. So we're going to name a variable teeth required, and I'll just shorten that to rec to keep it nice and simple. It is a good idea though when you are writing Python code to name your variables completely in a way that's easy for you to understand should you come back to read the code later, just like it is a good habit to comment. Okay, so in order to create this algorithm, we need to know what is the desired top speed. We need to divide that by the current top speed, and then we need to multiply that by the current pinion gear tooth count. Okay, so let's enter that now. Make sure you are very careful to use the correct cases and call the variables exactly as they appear previously in the program. It can be a good idea if you are making mistakes to actually select, copy and paste the value there, and that way you know you will get the exact same variable name as you did when you called it. So that should be all we need in order to calculate the tooth required for a particular top speed. What we need to do now is we need to create another line of code instructing the computer to return that value on the screen. So let's just enter a comment here explaining that. Now there was a couple of other errors that I picked up in my code as well, so I'm going to fix those while we're here. If you want a space to appear between the string that you've entered and the answer or the input, you need to have that space included in the string. So over here I didn't have a space and I didn't have a question mark, so I'm going to put those in now. And I think I also missed a space and a question mark here. And lastly, I'm going to use the round command just in case we've been returned with a number with a decimal point in it. I don't want to return a result with a decimal point because we can't get a pinion gear with 0.5 of a tooth. So we'll round that off, and we need to make sure we use the same variable. We're just going a little bit outside the window here. The variable was called teeth rec, so we'll just copy and paste that from here. Okay, let's run that again, and it's asking me to save. Of course I want to save, yes. It's also given me a invalid syntax. Okay, why have I written return here when I said round? Okay, that's a bit better. So you can see when we saved it, the Python program went and looked at the syntax to make sure it was alright, and it found my mistake. So and mistakes are important to make and important to learn from. That's why I'm not going to cut out my mistake. Okay, so now you're seeing the idle shell, and you can see it is asking me what is the current top speed. And the current top speed is 75. Now I'm answering in kilometers per hour, but the units of measurement actually doesn't matter here. if you input in miles per hour, the output will be in miles per hour. What is the current pinion tooth count? It was 16. And the desired top speed was, let's say, 85, I think I mentioned before. Okay, and the result is the required tooth count is 18. And that's it. If we wanted to, we could add a loop in here so that it just goes back to the start and asks us the same question again. But in this case, we only need to run the code once, so we don't need to bother. Okay, so that's it. The resulting program that calculates how many teeth on your pinion you need to achieve a desired top speed. I hope you enjoyed, and look out for my next video where I'll be putting this program into a window so that it can open up and run separately without showing us the shell window.